Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brainbean here again, and today we're going to be talking about fucking up, making mistakes, getting it wrong, in the bed, screwing the pooch. We've all done it a time or two, and in this video, I'm hopefully going to help you guys avoid some very common pitfalls when purchasing your first mechanical keyboard or a new one if you're newer to the hobby. And in the spirit of the holidays, I want to say thank you to you guys that are subscribed to my channel and been supporting me over the years. So I'm going to be doing a huge giveaway on this video. I'm going to be hooking one of my subscribers up with a Secretlab Omega or Titan series chair of your choice. And if you're not subscribed already, I'm not above a little bribe to subscribe. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned to the end of the video on how to win that chair. But for now, let's take a look at what to avoid when buying a new keyboard. The first mistake I think a lot of people make when buying their first mechanical keyboard or even just another keyboard in general is not taking the time to test out switches or at least research switches to figure out which type you might like. I always recommend trying to get hands-on with switches before you buy, especially if you're new to the hobby. At least getting an idea of what linear, tactile, and clicky switches feel like will make a big difference. And it's used to be a lot easier in our COVID-19 world. We can't really go into like a Best Buy and type around on a bunch of different keyboards that they have on display, and going over to friends' houses to try their keyboards out isn't as much of an option as it used to be. There is an option though where you can order a switch tester, which will have a bunch of different types of switches in it, so you can at least get a general idea of what you might like. You can get these for like 10 to 15 bucks online. Definitely a really good option before spending a bunch of money on a keyboard. I mean, for example, you might like the idea of linear switches, but find that you actually really enjoy the feeling of a tactile switch, or maybe you think that you wouldn't like a heavier switch, but then when you try other switches, you feel like they're too light and you do like the nice solid feeling that a heavier switch gives you. The old saying, you never really know until you try, definitely applies to keyboard switches. And if you don't want to shell out some extra cash for a switch tester and you don't have the option to go try some switches somewhere, I highly recommend at least doing a bit of research, because you can learn a lot about the different switch properties and how other people describe them to type on, as well as sound tests, and that will at least give you a little bit more knowledge to make an informed decision. I've actually got a full-length video covering everything you need to know from a beginner standpoint about different types of keyboard switches. I'll be sure to link that, as well as some links to other keyboard switch testers down below, so you guys can check these out in a little bit more detail. But just to piggyback off of the first thing, don't assume that some nerd talking into a camera on the internet is going to be able to tell you the ideal switch for you. Wait. I mean, just because I say one switch type is the best switch out there or is really good doesn't mean that that's going to be the ideal switch type for you. I mean, at the end of the day, choosing a mechanical keyboard switch is pretty much entirely personal preference. And while some switches are objectively better than others, a lot of times it just comes down to what feels right for you. I mean, realistically, you're the one that's going to be typing on this thing. So even if you prefer the cringy, squishy feeling of a membrane keyboard over some nice, crispy, holy pandas, that is totally okay, because that is what you like and you're going to be using that keyboard. So get what you like. And that's why I stress testing out switches, or at least getting some knowledge on it before you buy something. The second thing is assuming that you have to get a gaming keyboard if you're going to be using it primarily for gaming, or that there's even a big benefit or advantage in using a gaming keyboard. This is a pretty big misconception that I think a lot more people are aware of these days, but for someone who doesn't really follow the gaming hardware scene, this could certainly be something that could easily be misconstrued based on the way these keyboards are marketed and how niche other high quality alternatives are. I think the booming popularity of the Ducky 1-2 Mini with streamers certainly did a lot to make non-gaming boards more mainstream and shift more towards going with quality over flashy, aggressive designs. But we're also seeing the gaming industry shift more towards quality boards and features, bridging that enthusiast gaming keyboard gap. And this is another one of those topics where really I could talk about it on and on, but to spare you that, I do have a full-length video already kind of addressing this. I'll link that down in the description as well. But in short, there are certainly some arguments for why a gaming keyboard is a great option for some people. They're generally more lighting options and integration with your games. The switches tend to be faster and more suited for quick gameplay, and they tend to have a more aggressive aesthetic that you may prefer. On the other hand, do faster gaming-centric switches make much of a difference? Nope, almost not at all, because the difference we're talking about here in actuation distance is just so minute. I personally game on super heavy and ultra tactile switches compared to a light linear gaming keyboard, and I notice absolutely no difference in my performance going back from a faster gaming switch to those switches. And when it comes to that, you might notice a difference if you're playing at a super top tier level with lightning fast reflexes, but for all of us normies out there, you're really not going to notice a difference here. Speaking of making smart decisions, let's take a look at today's sponsor, Flexispot. With the pandemic, many of us are learning or working from home, which has us spending way more time at our desks. Flexispot offers a whole range of affordable sit-stand desks that are easy to assemble, super smooth and quiet to operate, and totally rock solid. I've been using 2 Flexispot desks in my studio for the last 2 years. They hold up great and are still performing just like the day I got them. So whatever your use case, gaming battle stations, studio spaces, or just a place to work or learn, if you spend all day at your desk, you really owe it to yourself to pick up a sit-stand desk. Your body will definitely thank you for it. Click the link in the description to check out Flexispot today. The third mistake, I think, is just assuming that building your own keyboard is either too difficult or requires some sort of special skill or tool, or that it's too expensive for somebody who's not really sure if they want to get into the hobby. Building your own custom keyboard is a great way to ensure you get the exact keyboard you want. You can select just about all aspects of the design, from the case, PCB, plate, switches, LEDs, stabilizers, keycaps, cables, you name it. If you've been looking at pre-builts and you just haven't found something that suits you, or you just want something with a little bit more personal touch, building is a fantastic option. I think it's a pretty big misconception that you need to know about electronics or have some sort of skill to be able to build your own custom keyboard, because there are a bunch of kits out there that just use hot swappable sockets, which remove the need to know how to solder, and you can basically build the entire keyboard with just a standard Phillips screwdriver. In most cases, it's also incredibly hard to actually mess up your components, so it's a very forgiving hobby for newcomers. Building can be about as expensive as you want it to be, and you could easily get into the plus $1,000 range if you're not careful, but there's also plenty of kits out there that can get you building your own board for around $100 to $200. And if you're wondering whether it's better for you to build or buy your next keyboard, I do have another video covering this exact topic that I will link down in the description below under the other 2. Going for a record on plugs on this one. The fourth thing I want to caution you against is just don't skimp out on your keyboard if you don't have to. Much like choosing a tattoo artist or a plastic surgeon, you really don't want to look back and wish that you just spent a little bit extra. I realize this is kind of broad and everybody has their own budget, but for the most part, spending a little bit extra to make sure you're getting something that will feel great to use and last you for years to come is a solid investment. And there are some good cheap keyboards out there too, but there's way more trash ones around for the sub $60 price point. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you're already doing your research, which is a really good thing that I highly recommend doing. And I'm gonna leave a couple of more links in the description to some of my top 5 keyboard videos over the last few years, as well as budget roundup videos to help steer you in the right direction. And I do think that keyboards is one of those hobbies where you definitely get what you pay for, but there are diminishing returns the higher up you get into the really expensive enthusiast level stuff. Not to overly contradict what I said earlier about switches, but there is, in my opinion, a definite difference in the quality of some good switches, cases, and other components. But again, if you like the feel of a more budgety switch like Altimu, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the last thing is not planning ahead. Now, this definitely falls more into the pre-built category, I think, than custom keyboards. But either way, whichever route you go, you don't want something coming back to bite you in the butt. And I get it. I mean, yeah, a lot of times when we are getting a keyboard, we just want to get something that looks cool, that's going to work, and make that purchase and be done with it. But what happens when down the line you're looking at some cool new keycap sets and you pop a key off your keyboard and you've got a Romer G switch, or you've got a low profile switch, and those aren't going to be compatible with the MX style keycaps that you want. Or maybe you want to get a cool new custom coiled cable for your keyboard, but it doesn't have a removable cable. These are the details that you should be at least aware of if you're considering doing some upgrades down the line. Keep an eye out for things like removable USB-C cables so that you can get aftermarket cables if you want to. Hot swappable switch sockets are also super nice because you can try out other switches later without having to buy a whole new keyboard. Just make sure to check what kind of socket it is, because there are different ones for optical and mechanical switches. Also, keyboards that use low profile or Romer G switches, like I mentioned, will not work with cherry style keycap stems. And also, keyboards with non-standard or compact layouts will make getting aftermarket keycaps much more difficult and much more expensive. Now, you definitely don't need to do like a whole keyboard roadmap when you buy your keyboard to know where you want to end up, but you should at least consider these things so you know what upgrades you can do to your keyboard in the future if you want to. Well, that's it for the rundown, guys. I hope this video helps you make a good informed decision in the future. Don't forget, I've got all those links down in the description to help you on your keyboard journey even further. And of course, like I said at the beginning of the video, I am going to be giving a Secretlab Omega or Titan of your choice to one of my subscribers. All you have to do to be eligible to win that is, of course, like I said, be subscribed to this channel and leave your Twitter handle down in the comments so that I can announce it on my Twitter at Brainbean Gaming. So be sure to follow me over there. And while you're down there leaving that Twitter handle, be sure to let me know if there's anything that I left out in this list or other tips to people that might be looking for their first keyboard as well. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next one.